Breaking news. At 02:19 UTC this morning, a routine infrared calibration sweep conducted by the James Webb Space Telescope registered something that was never supposed to appear in the data stream. The observation originated from Webb's near-infrared camera, pointed toward a region of space that, until recently, was considered astronomically unremarkable, the outbound trajectory corridor of the interstellar object known as 3I Atlas. Moments later, secondary confirmation arrived from ground-based observatories on two continents. What they saw forced an immediate halt to automated processing. Today, the impossible just happened. A pattern of structured illumination, persistent, localized, and repeating, was detected emanating from 3I Atlas itself. Not reflected sunlight, not thermal afterglow, light that appeared to be generated. This changes everything we thought we knew. If you want verified cosmic updates as this story unfolds, hit like, subscribe, and stay with us, because what follows may be the most consequential discovery in modern astronomy. To understand the gravity of what was detected, we need to establish where this information came from and why the scientific community reacted with immediate alarm. The James Webb Space Telescope operates far beyond Earth's atmosphere, at the Sun-Earth L2 point, nearly 1.5 million kilometers away. From that vantage, it observes the universe in infrared wavelengths with a sensitivity unmatched by any instrument ever deployed. Its detectors are calibrated to differentiate between reflected starlight, thermal emissions, and chemical signatures down to fractions of a nanowatt per square meter. Within minutes of the initial anomaly, alerts were transmitted to NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center in the United States, ESA's operations hub in Darmstadt, Germany, and data partners at Harvard, Caltech, and the European Space Network. Simultaneously, the Atacama Large Millimeter Array in Chile redirected its array toward the same coordinates, while radio observatories in Australia and South Africa began passive listening protocols. Across three continents, independent instruments were now watching the same object. 3I Atlas was never supposed to be visible again in this way. Classified as an interstellar object due to its hyperbolic trajectory, it was expected to pass through the solar system once and vanish into interstellar darkness. Models predicted no sustained activity beyond weak outgassing and gradual dimming. Instead, Webb sensors recorded discrete points of infrared illumination clustered across the object's surface, lights that turned on, turned off, and then repeated. 48 hours before this detection, everything appeared normal. Tracking data showed 3I Atlas moving at approximately 32 kilometers per second relative to the Sun, with a surface temperature hovering near 180 Kelvin, cold, inert, and consistent with an inactive body. Spectral readings indicated no volatile release, no plasma interaction, and no unusual reflectivity. It was, by all accounts, a silent traveler. Then, 11 hours later, subtle changes emerged. Webb's mid-infrared instrument recorded a faint but localized rise in emission at wavelengths centered around 4.6 microns. Initially dismissed as noise, the signal persisted. 6 hours after that, the emission intensified, but only at specific points, not a diffuse glow, not a thermal halo, pinpoint sources. At T-3 hours to the event, those points began to pulse. The interval was 1.618 seconds, then again and again. No known natural process produces discrete, repeating illumination at fixed surface locations in deep space without an energy source. Comets do not glow in patterns. Asteroids do not blink. Thermal emissions decay smoothly. They do not oscillate. At the moment of confirmation, Webb software flagged the data as anomalous and automatically requested human review. That review escalated within minutes to what internal protocols refer to as a Category Black observation. events that cannot be reconciled with established astrophysical models. As the timeline expanded backward, scientists noticed something even more disturbing. 3 days earlier, 3I Atlas had experienced a sudden mass reduction, nearly 99%, without fragmentation. Gravitational modeling showed no debris field, no dust cloud, no measurable kinetic dispersion. Whatever mass was lost did not scatter. It vanished. Now, light was appearing from what remained. Spectroscopic analysis revealed the emissions were narrow-band and non-thermal. The effective temperature of the light sources exceeded 1200 Kelvin, yet the surrounding surface remained near cryogenic equilibrium. That meant energy was being generated internally and radiated selectively. No natural explanation fit. At Caltech, Dr. Elena Marrow led a rapid simulation using high-resolution gravitational and thermal models. Her team tested every known mechanism: crystallization of exotic ices, piezoelectric stress emissions, charged particle interactions with solar wind. Each failed. The symmetry was too precise, the timing too controlled. Meanwhile, at Harvard, Dr. Isaac Havel analyzed the pulse intervals. When converted into frequency space, the emissions aligned with a sequence of prime number ratios, not encoded as a message, but structured nonetheless, a signature of intentional modulation. This was no longer random, it was responding. As the investigation deepened, a second wave of anomalies emerged. One of the illumination points disappeared, not dimmed, but gone. Simultaneously, radio telescopes detected a brief, broadband silence in the surrounding region, as if local space itself had been momentarily disrupted. The fragment, or component, never reappeared. Then came the alignment. Over a span of 6 hours, 3I Atlas adjusted its orientation by exactly 0.004 degrees, bringing the illuminated region into direct alignment with the inner solar system. Not toward the Sun, not toward Earth precisely, but along the ecliptic plane, intersecting the orbital paths of multiple planets. Controlled motion, no visible propulsion, no reaction mass. At NASA headquarters, internal communications went dark. Automated feeds were delayed. ESA issued a single-line advisory to partner institutions. Data under active review, no public release authorized. That silence spoke louder than any announcement. On Earth, subtle effects began to register. Low Earth orbit satellites reported transient sensor noise. Shortwave radio operators noticed brief dropouts at synchronized intervals. Magnetometers in northern latitudes recorded fluctuations on the order of tens of nanotesla, small but coherent across thousands of kilometers. Even biological systems responded. Migratory bird tracking data showed abrupt course corrections over the North Atlantic, deviating from established patterns for reasons no climatologist could explain. None of these effects were catastrophic. All were measurable. The global reaction was quiet but intense. Governments convened closed-door briefings. Space agencies issued non-denial denials. The word lights was never used in official language. Instead, terms like structured emissions and localized energy phenomena appeared in internal drafts. But among scientists, the debate was unavoidable. One hypothesis argued for an extreme natural explanation, that 3I Atlas was a fragment of an exotic object, perhaps a relic of a collapsed star system, capable of storing and releasing energy through unknown phase transitions. This explanation required physics beyond current models, but avoided intent. The alternative hypothesis was more unsettling, that the lights were artificial. Not signals, not beacons, but operational illumination, energy expended for function, not communication, maintenance, calibration, awakening. If true, it would mean that what entered our solar system was not debris, It was infrastructure. As I stared at the data feed, one realization became impossible to ignore. The lights were not bright, they were efficient, precisely as bright as necessary and no more, a hallmark of engineering, not nature. Maybe we're not witnessing the end of an interstellar journey. Maybe we're witnessing the moment it noticed us. In the calm after the chaos, the question is not whether this object poses a threat. The question is whether it represents a precedent, proof that the universe is not only filled with matter and energy, but with purpose. 3i Atlas remains in place as of this recording. The lights have dimmed, but they have not disappeared. Webb continues to observe. So does the rest of the world, even if quietly. Because if something crossed interstellar space, shed its mass, activated internal systems, and aligned itself within our solar system, then the story isn't over. It may just be beginning. Subscribe to follow the next update. What happens when it lights up again?